What's up, Coachable family? Welcome back to the Coachable podcast. If you're new here, welcome. So glad you found it to this corner of the internet. I am the host of this show, Tori Gordon, and today I am so excited to be sharing this space with Orlando. Zuniga is here, a new and dear friend that I am so excited to go deeper with. You and I have only met in the last couple of months,
right?
But as soon as we did, there was just like a natural resonance to your energy and what you do. We met at a dear friend, Craig's house. Craig has been on this show from In Harmony multiple times. And what I loved about you is you are a psychotherapist, but you have a holistic and integrative approach to what you do, really combining holistic modalities and even integrative health and medicine into your approach to helping people heal on a deep core root level, right, and come back to their personal power, which we need so much more now than ever, is to be able to find our root. Like,
yes,
our root, really,
right.
Like, what are we connected to? What stabilizes us? What gives us an anchor for our soul in the midst of so much uncertainty, so much chaos? We just got the election results yesterday. The election, we're filming this day after this election. And for many people today, they are grieving. They're experiencing anger and disappointment and frustration and maybe even some powerlessness and hopelessness. And then there's another set of people that are celebrating and hopeful. And you might be somewhere on that spectrum. I'm sure that you are. Or if you're listening from outside the United States as kind of a fly on the wall watching what's happening, you too are right, kind of watching all of this go down. And so this conversation is, we really want to kind of dive into how do we source personal power? What does that mean? How do we know when we're in a place of power and an empowered mindset and mentality towards life, especially at a time when a lot of people are feeling powerless and really disappointed and hopeless? Like, what does that mean? How do we come back to feeling rooted again and finding stability in the midst of a lot of instability? So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I gave people an idea of like where we're headed in this conversation, but can you just give the listeners and those who are watching a little bit of understanding about your background and kind of the work that you do?
Sure. I think that's a good place to start. So there's context about where I'm going to bring this information from.
Please.
My work didn't start with really understanding power. That is only more recently as I became independent from hospital systems, from institutions, from corporations. And so my background, I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I'm also a coach. I work with holistic health practices, which means I work with things that are more lifestyle, more functional medicine and organic to more traditional ways of operating as a human, as a living being. Yeah. Part of that modality, part of that framework is working with psychedelics as well, which was something I didn't think or plan on doing. It just organically evolved into my life because I needed it for myself. Yeah. And even then, I didn't seek it out. It found me. And even then, I didn't seek out being a facilitator. It was, it's almost like it was following me around or kind of dating me or courting me. And even then I was like, no, this is not, it's too much responsibility. It's not something I'm going to be doing. Yeah. And so my journey of stepping into that, and I'm still in that quite a bit, even with all these other different medicines. So a lot of the topic of power will be coming from my origin of feeling powerless and also feeling like a victim and also not being given the permission to create the life that I wanted for myself. Yeah. And that comes from the origin of my family, of my culture, of what it meant to be a boy in the time I was born in. I mean, some people may be able to relate regardless of where they're at, what age they are, what gender they are. Power is innate to all of us, the ability to create the life that we want. Yeah. So that's the context I would say we were going to start with. Yeah. Is really understanding not just my journey. This is that's part of it. But as I've done my own work, and I've also supported other patients and clients in doing their own work, a lot of it stems from people not having access to their own power, not feeling like they're capable, like they're worthy, like they can do whatever it is that they want to do. And sometimes it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
You tell me, doctor, you tell me, professor, you tell me, husband or wife or whomever. There people are, what I've realized and have learned through working, not just in my own experience, but also in working with clients again, is how often we give our power away.
Yeah.
Even when we think we're not giving our power away.
100%.
We tend to really, we can get into so many different neuroses and ways in which people give their power away.
Yeah.
We have the savior, rescuer type complex. We have the victimizer complex. We have the people who are people pleasing in a way as well. There's many different ways in which our powerlessness can show up.
Let's start at the beginning of like where we come into relationship with power dynamics at the beginning of our lives, because understanding in giving a more context to this understanding and relationship to power. And as, human beings, my understanding is that our first, like as relational beings, there is a power play all the time. We see this in relationships. I'm sure as a therapist, I see it with my clients.
Definitely.
There's a lot of a power struggle between between couples, between friends and communities, like within the church, within religious organizations, within our government, obviously, that we live within a culture and a society that has a hierarchical structure.
Yes.
And we are used to seeing pyramids and not circles.
Yes.
And so take us back to the beginning of like when we come into the world, what do you think is our relationship to power? And then what do we learn as we grow and develop?
I love that you're approaching it from the foundation of relationships. And as I mentioned I'm a licensed clinician, but my specialty is actually marriage and family therapy. That has been my focus. Yeah. And more importantly for that is because the dynamic of the power of the family, right? How important that dynamic is, that the power of the family. So when we're in utero and we're born, we're gathering information in utero already. We're understanding experiences that are happening. But as soon as we are birthed, there is a power dynamic. There's a sense of, first of all, we're born very vulnerable. We're born very vulnerable. We're a species that requires our parents or caregivers to really protect us and support us and clothe us, feed us, nurture us. We need so much. Yeah. And that is the beginning of the relationship of, am I safe? Am I safe? Can I trust these people with my life, right? And then we begin to really understand, when we're children, we don't have access to vocabulary or words. So we're communicating through sound, through movement, through energetics as well. We're not a species yet. We're heading in this direction where we can really understand how to communicate energetically or telepathically. We're heading in that direction. Yeah. We're developing that sense a bit more. And so we really begin from a place of powerlessness. So the journey of being human as of today is the journey of going from powerlessness to stepping into your power. Yeah. And that's really the journey of the human soul. From what I've seen from my perspective, when we're working with spiritual psychology, there's a lot of work that goes into being a sovereign being, breaking free from the limitations of, well, my mother would approve if I did this, or would my father approve if I did that? Am I lovable if I do this? So we really begin from a place of really our families, getting the sense of, am I safe in this family? Yeah. And then we go beyond that with our relatives and our neighbors. And then at school, when we start entering the school system, other kids, teachers who have authority, So now our relationship with power starts to get really shaped with how is the teacher treating me? Getting good grades. They're choosing me to participate. I'm getting more attention because I'm doing good. So we start to develop a sense of like our power and ourselves based on the relationship that we have also at school.
Yeah.
And it just extends from there.
Yeah. And I think there's an important piece here that like also what is the relationship with power and privilege? Because just even thinking about what you were just sharing about, it starts within the family of Am I Safe? And then it extends out from there in our communities, our friend groups, our schools. And I'm thinking of those in marginalized communities, BIPOC, children that have disabilities, like, depending on your level of privilege and accessibility to some of the things that I have access to, like there are then different kind of hierarchies of power there. So can you go a little bit into how power and privilege have what that relationship is like?
Absolutely. So depending on which community that you're born into, you're beginning at a certain level of power. Yeah. Even within that family. Like I worked with people in families with very little power. And then I've worked with people with families with a lot of power, more power than they might even need. And so there's a spectrum of power in the communities they were born into. And so privilege is part of that. Yeah. They might not have the level of understanding and empathy for somebody that doesn't have power. And those individuals that don't have the power might not understand how challenging it actually is for those that have an excess amount of power.
Well, it's this idea that people think that we all start at the same starting point, and we don't. It reminds me of that like exercise I've seen, I think some coach or somebody have done, where it's like, okay, if you come from separated parents, like step back
forward or back.
or if you were abused as a child, step back. If you were in poverty, step back. If you have, all these things. And so we're not all starting from an equal starting point. Right. And so those that are what we, are starting from a certain point, we think everyone's starting from that same place. And the reality of what I've learned as I've gone deeper into my own work around looking at decolonizing my own consciousness and white supremacy and these ideas of superiority and of any kind that I've kind of just been conditioned and programmed into based on my culture and where I grew up, is realizing that in and of itself is something that absolutely needs to be considered and part of the conversation, because there might be people who are like, well, I feel powerless. And there's a lot of our world and our society that's built on systems of oppression that keeps those people where they are.
Yes.
So how do we become sovereign, powerful human beings in a society and a culture, and now with a president that has very publicly, talked about, not being for all people in terms of equal rights.
Right. So that's a phenomenal question. The idea of we don't all start from the same place, and I like the topic of speaking on decolonization there, and what does that mean? For me, it was a very visceral experience when growing up. My parents are from Mexico and born here in the U.S. So like living in these two worlds. And I work with a lot of people that not just that are from Mexican descent, but that are from different cultures where their parents have legally migrated to this country and they live these two worlds. They're bicultural. Yep. They live in two worlds. At home, they live in one culture. And when they're not at home, they live in the mainstream American culture. And they're having to navigate between both. And so there is a sense of understanding what it means to decolonize from that perspective of like, how do I operate in this mainstream culture? And part of it is understanding how do we respect the diversity in who we are and in who other people are. Totally. And really understanding what power do we have here and what power do they have. So there's constantly a negotiation of power that happens. And I see it all the time in couples, in marriages. Oftentimes that's the number one concern for couples is they want to move in one direction, or one person wants to move in one direction and the other person wants to move in another direction. And that's a negotiation in power, and saying, I want this. Well, I want this. So how do we negotiate? How do we collaborate to really get to where we want to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think relationship in that context is a microcosm for the collective, right? I mean, the political parties, the division that we see across party lines, across state lines, across sports teams, across whatever. It's like, I'm for this and you're for that, and we're not the same. And so we're taught to dislike each other and hate each other. And that must then push us further into our sectors of, where we are agreed with and where we have common interests, or wherever, we share a common culture or mindset or whatever.
Yes.
And yet there is this need for us to live in harmony, because we all have to exist together, and we all do come from the same source, which a lot of us have forgotten or aren't connected to that understanding. But how do we bridge the divide?
I love that question.
I know this is a big question to unpack.
And I'm going to share from my perspective of like how I work with division in my work, right? In relationships. Beautiful. And I work with families. So I'm negotiating between multiple members. And part of it, honestly, the number one tool is communication. But not just with words. It's you're communicating with yourself of like, okay, as you're listening in, like most people don't listen, number one. The majority of people have a difficult time listening. They're waiting for their turn to respond. They're not actually like really listening, like, okay, what's their body language, or are they engaging with me? What does it mean when their eyes aren't connected to me? Are they in fear? Like, we don't want to assume, but we can ask questions. We can really be curious. I think that's an important factor in communication, is getting really curious, because a lot of people, they immediately want to drive their emotional expression outward, and they might be threatened. They might feel very emotional about it, and now they're hijacked by their amygdala. They're in a fear state, and so now they're attacking, and so now there's division. There isn't actually any connection any longer. So part of it is, all right, what's going on inside for me? What about what this person is saying is threatening me? Right. And now we're getting into some really more deeper subjects, especially for men, especially, where is this deep sense of I'm not vulnerable. Like, we might not recognize in the culture of men how vulnerable we actually are, because we haven't actually been given the permission to be vulnerable.
Sure. I just had a client today who is ultra successful.
Yes.
Just signed up for coaching with me. And this is 35 years of life. The first time, he doesn't know how to feel. He doesn't know how to, like, we're beginning at that stage.
Oh, we can have a whole discussion about therapy for men or coaching for men.
Sure. And there's obviously a process, and flowers don't grow overnight, and it takes time,
Exactly.
but the ability to even, like, for him, for instance, one of his patterns was just taking care of. I'll provide. I'll do what needs to be done. Don't ask more from me. I'm doing my role. I'm providing. Yeah. And there's a desire for intimacy and closeness, yet I don't know how to be in that relationship. And I take care of you. And because as a child, I was always told to go to my room to deal with my feelings. I live in isolation and I don't talk about them.
That's right.
And so now, for the first time, we're going to open Pandora's box of, like, if you had a safe, loving witness who was just present, if you had the mom or dad to walk in the door after you were upset and say, hey, baby, how you doing? What's going on? Let's talk it out. Right. Like, I'm just here to listen to you. What would come up? Right. And a lot of men have never had that.
Right.
Yeah.
So to that point, it's really rewiring the neurons to really repair and reparent what maybe didn't occur early on. Oftentimes in therapy, we tend to go back to parenting
Yeah.
or caregiving that occurred, because that begins to develop our sense of how we communicate what our needs are, or maybe not necessarily. And then within that, there's many different things. So one of the bigger tools for addressing connection and communication is getting to know who you are.
Yeah.
That's know thyself.
That is
right?
like the number one common theme of people who
So
don't
important.
feel connected.
Yeah.
I see is that they also don't know who they are.
They don't know who they are. So since we're talking about power, before you can access your own power, we really have to understand, like, who am I? What is my power? How do I generate my power? What is my relationship with being a creator, right? Because your relationship with being a creator is directly linked to how you can exercise that power and how you can cultivate that power.
Yeah.
That power to create the life you want, the power to stay connected, the power to really navigate and move through challenges in life, including relationships.
So would you say then that in a victim mindset, there is no such thing as personal power?
In a victim mindset,
does it require that growth, creative perspective that I can create and I am a creator to tap into power, authentic power?
It's one of those really delicate aspects of the wounded mind and the wounded soul, where it's not negating. Like, here's where we have to really define here. When we ask a victim to look at their pain and to look at their source, they're looking at it from, you did this to me, or something outside of me harmed me. Yes, we're not going to negate that. And it's an opportunity to step into the power, to step into, how can I become responsible? How can I gather my power to really turn this into, I have the ability to not be in pain any longer. I have the ability to learn from this experience here. And we can look at different examples. We can look at the example of a partner being abused by another partner, right? We'll use like the normative gender roles, like husband and wife, right? We can look at that example of, she's a victim. She's a victim being abused by her husband. Where is her power? And that's a whole different thing that we can get into, where there's a wheel of power, where the wheel of power is how over time we start to really be in more fear and lose our power, especially if we've given our power away. Our power being, okay, husband, you are making the money, you are paying the bills, this is your role, my role is this, but now I'm not making money, now I'm depending on you. And over time, if the trust is eroded and that partner becomes abusive, that person becomes powerless.
Yeah.
They've forgotten.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean
I'm trapped.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trapped. She's trapped in a way, but she has to gather so much more power to get out of it.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And so I empathize with that. I've seen it. I've worked with it. I've worked on both ends. I've worked with the victims and the perpetrators. And when I was in school, nobody wanted to work with the perpetrators.
Sure.
But because I was like in the jungle and I came late, I was like, you get to work with the perpetrators. So I was like, I didn't want to work with people who are abusers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, fine. And I just learned that they were abused too.
100%. Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
They were abused
it's
too.
Learned behavior.
It's learned behavior. It's learned behavior. And unfortunately, a lot of people have a very difficult time having compassion for people who are abusive.
For sure.
I can respect that.
Yeah.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And so back to the victim here, the victim really has to really look at, they have the opportunity to look at here, how can I get out of this? Like my community, maybe
what
church.
What can I do?
What can I do? What are my possibilities? I have a child now. I don't have a job, and like my husband won't let me. And then the husband really does. There's very specific types of situations that happen. They're alienated and
Ostracized.
Ostracized.
Yeah.
I actually saw that a lot on a larger scale systemically. I saw that during the pandemic quite a bit. all these different layers of abuse where you're isolated, you're trusting power sources, you're being manipulated almost mentally, being told that don't trust this, don't trust that.
Yep.
So your powers are slow, your power is slowly being taken away. And it's one of those things that happens so slightly that it doesn't happen all at once. It's like the slow boiling
frog. It's like siphoning your power. It's like somebody who like
your vitality.
Yes.
Big time.
100%. And I've seen that on a spiritual level too, like the soul level, just like working with people you can see it manifest in different areas.
Work.
For
you
sure.
see it at work with
their
a corporation.
Life force and it's just dead. Yeah.
You see it between the manager and an employee here, that dynamic to some degree. And that happens quite a bit when people, oftentimes people come into my practice when they're working and they want to really understand, why am I depressed? And oftentimes we start to look at their relationships, and somewhere in there, there's a siphoning that you mentioned that we start to really identify. And sometimes it does come in the form of a manager or a boss that really has an unhealthy relationship with power. Recently, I was working with a woman where the woman was friends with somebody. That friend became a manager now, and that manager was now managing this friend. They lost that friendship, and now the relationship was like, I have this power, I have this responsibility to this corporation or this organization, so now I'm going to treat you in this way. Clearly, that person, that manager, needs some more training to really operationalize more. How do I do that in a human way, in a humane way?
Yeah. Because oftentimes when we look up, like in a hierarchy, like you're looking at a manager or boss or something who you're like, I need this job, so I have to deal with this treatment or be within this system.
Yes.
And there are times where we have choice and there are times that we might not. And I think there's this piece around what you said is like, this question, what can I do? Of like, what is within my power to do? And a lot of times we'll like when we invite people into choice, they think they don't have choices when they do.
That's so right.
Right?
Yeah. And it's not always, honestly, it's almost always really difficult choices that you have to make.
100%.
Very difficult ones.
Because in my work, what I was taught, especially from a trauma-informed approach, was that one of the hallmarks of trauma is choicelessness. And that is when we're absolutely a victim when something, we don't have an ability to choose differently. It is inflicted on us and we have to endure it. And part for me of reclaiming my power has been reclaiming my choice, my ability to choose what now. Well, maybe I didn't choose this thing that happened to me, but I now have a choice about what I'm going to do on the other side of it. And if I'm going to continue to stay in this dynamic, if I'm going to continue to participate in this, exchange, if I'm going to make very hard, oftentimes, I don't know when it's not, especially when we're coming out of really difficult, challenging dynamics like that, where you're going to disrupt the current dynamic that is at play.
And honestly, that disruption is part of that process of empowerment, truly. And I want to really be sensitive to the topic of powerlessness here, because people can be in really delicate situations.
For sure.
You could be, again, in a relationship that's abusive, not just like mentally and emotionally, maybe physically,
For sure.
maybe sexually. And we want to be really careful with that, because it might feel like this is, I'm afraid for my life and I don't have a choice. Again, like you said, I don't have, that's the psychology is I'm powerless. I don't have a choice. I have to, this is the only way I can survive is by staying in this, right? There's protocols and systems set in place to support those people in getting out of that cycle of abuse, which is what that's called, cycle of abuse. And but it in the mind, it feels like unattainable. I can't tell. There's shame, so much shame attached to that. I can't really tell anybody about this. I have to be quiet about it. I mean, you see it oftentimes even in the media and movies of hiding it with makeup, like just, oh, we're fine, right? There's a sense of like, if I don't talk about it, if I silence this, it'll go away. Like maybe it won't happen again. Maybe if I walking on eggshells, if I treat him well or her, like I want to make it clear that this is not just only like between men and women. This is like in homosexual couples. This is with family members that are in the same family. This is with friends. This is in different dynamics that really occur. But there is a way, and usually that's through community. That's through there's different systems. I mean, there's safe houses for women, battered individuals, children. They're actually hidden, so they're not. You can't find them online. You don't know where they are, and they're meant to exist to help people feel safe.
Yeah.
To help families really be safe.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to acknowledge.
If you have any resources for that, I'd love to put them in the show notes for people to be able to access some of that support. If we have anything that we can share, make sure if you are in a situation like that, you check the show notes so that you can get some support and find a community and a safe space, because that's incredibly important. And I want to talk about, how all of this relates to the development of personal power, especially given like this idea that we have, and I think it's rampant in our culture of capitalism, of like thinking that there is something out there that's going to save us and fix us, whether it's your favorite political candidate or God, Father God in the sky, or like what
guru.
Some guru. There's so many things that we're just push products of like, buy this, this will make you better, this will fix you, this will make you beautiful, this will help you lose weight. And we think this is the quick one-stop shop or the quick fix to my issue, and that'll fix me. And our constant looking outside of ourselves for that savior. Where do we learn that? And can we dismantle that idea, or like kind of talk about the process of looking externally to starting to look internally?
Right. And part of it is recognizing that, it begins from the point of, I want to go to this place, or I want to become this person. How do I do it? Where do I go? So people will immediately go outside of themselves. Let me ask somebody with more experience. They might come to one of us, maybe coach, a therapist. They might go to a doctor. They might go to a teacher, their parents, like somebody else. They
know best.
You know best to some degree. Before we get to that, we want to get really clear about what is it that we're feeling. What is it that's going on? I mean, we have a sense of where we are at least. We know what we don't want. I'm uncomfortable with where I live. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm uncomfortable with this relationship, or I'm uncomfortable at this job, or I'm uncomfortable at this socioeconomic level. Whatever it might be, is getting really clear about where are we? And sometimes why we seek out external help, and it's helpful to go external sometimes, to have that mentor,
for sure, to
have that friend or that teacher. We're going to go back to we're social creatures, where we're built on relationship. That's really extremely important. Before we give our power away to somebody, it's who are we hiring to support us, and what's their relationship? With power? What's their experience? And part of it. Now, as a person that has had quite a few different mentors and teachers, I've been in experiences where I've given my power away to mentors, to therapists, to doctors, to professors. And it's only until I really discovered like, oh, ultimately, this is what I tell my patients, like, especially whenever I'm working in a hospital. They're immediately like, what do I do, doctor? What do I do? I was like, well, let me give you information, but ultimately it's not my choice. It's going to be your choice. Like, sit with it, really tune into how does that feel inside for you? Does it feel aligned with your values? Does it feel appropriate? Because my framework might not be somebody else's framework. And so we want to be really careful as mentors and as individuals who are sharing our power with others to not overpower or overshadow somebody that is coming to get a little bit of temporary power so they can jumpstart, so they can get sparked into lighting their torch so they can go and do it on their own.
Yeah, that we aren't the capital T truth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That the truth resides within you.
Right.
And I like to say, I'm not the voice, I am a voice.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I am
That's
not
important.
The council, I am on your council. Yeah. Oh, you know what I mean? And so take everything I say with a grain of salt, check in with yourself. How does this resonate in your body? Take what resonates and leave the rest. You know what I mean? I am not the
savior.
I'm not.
No.
Yeah.
I'm
not going to claim to know what's best for you. I'm going to keep pointing you back to you to see what that feels like inside you. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's really important what you just said. And the conversation there is maybe I'm a consultant and I'm just here to provide information, and it's your responsibility to do something with that information if you want to. It's a choice. But part of that relationship is always giving the other person a choice, and not saying you have to because I'm your doctor or your coach or your therapist or your priest or whatever, your guru, your yoga teacher, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. I think that's so important because, I think back to different times in my life where I have outsourced my power, where I didn't want to think for myself.
Might be easier sometimes.
Right? It's like, and I see this a lot of when we're prompted with a question, well, what do you think you should do? Or what do you want to do?
Right.
And the answer is, I don't know. And so sometimes I've found that that's just a lazy answer.
Yeah.
That we get to go to as a tactic for having to consult with ourselves. Yeah. So I would rather give you the responsibility of making the decision for me so that I don't have to hold the weight of making that choice.
Right.
Do you see that at all? And
a lot.
And how do we start to mend our relationship to responsibility then? Because power is responsibility, and those are linked in certain ways. I have to be responsible for the choices that I make, but I'm only powerful when I choose those things for myself.
I see it so much in the dynamic of a relationship too, where I want to please my partner. I want to make sure they're okay. What do you want to do? Well, where do you want to go to eat? Oh, I don't care. Wherever you want to go. So they're already not checking in with themselves. They already have that relationship. Oh, I don't care. Or it doesn't matter that much to me. I don't want to use brain power, whatever the reason might be. So it's here you go. Part of that conditioning really comes from early on of the parent is saying, do as I say. They're not
giving them an opinion or a...
Yeah. They're not giving them the space to really support them in stepping into their own power and understanding your decision matters just as much as mom's or dad's. Where do you want to go for dinner, or what would you like to do today? And that conditioning tends to begin there. So let me tell you where it begins. Usually, it begins at the point, and this is very difficult for parents. Some parents, not all parents, especially the unhealthy ones, unfortunately, where they're becoming teenagers. At that point, right there is when the child who is no longer needing as much of parents' power. So part of the process of the development of child is, you parent, you need to use your power of don't touch that stove, or don't go into traffic, or you have the power. You need to keep them safe. Okay, cool. At some point, you're slowly every year giving up a little bit less power.
It makes me think of if you grew up with a dictator in your family almost. So it's if you wanted to wear something to school and you're no, you can't wear that. Right. You have to wear this. It's how children try to express themselves and then we're told no.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's what I say goes.
Right.
So we learn to just, I'm not even I don't even know what I want now because I've been so disconnected from it for so long. I've just been following rules and taking orders.
Exactly. So they're in this it's a very crucial time. They're in an environment at home, hopefully at home, where they're learning about their personal power. And if they're not being guided or supported in the parent relinquishing some of their power, and that's where the relationship really happens, where the parent is now leaving more of the caretaker role, but more as like the person who's standing back and hoping that what they taught their child up to that point, they've instilled in a healthy manner, and that they are there. So this is where attachment theory comes in as well.
Yeah.
Like, studies with like toddlers at age 2 or 3, and you see the toddler, a healthy, secure attachment is like, if they leave at a distance, they're not going to panic. They're not going to cry. They're going to be very comfortable. They're going to come back. If they completely disappear and they're excited to see the parent again, that's a secure attachment. But if it's a child that says like, I don't care that you're here, I'm going to ignore you, because their cries for a connection and attention were ignored. The parent wasn't there to give them the relationship they needed, or even the anxious attachment style of like, I can't stop crying, like shaking, and it doesn't matter who comes in to pick them up, and sometimes even the parent, because now the fear of the child is, as soon as you're distanced from me, I'm not safe. That's the message that they have internally there in some way. Yeah. So again, the teenage brain at that point is, I want to express myself. Autonomy. I want to do this. I want to do that. Yeah. So begins to change around that time.
Yeah.
Our relationship with power.
Yeah.
Is, can our parents give us a little bit of slack to be? And I mean, we definitely live in a world where it can be like, I'm afraid to, and I want to really side with the parents here of like, I get it. Yeah. It's not easy right now to be a parent of like, don't go online here. Who are you hanging out with? What school are you going to? What part of the city are you going to be at? So there's a lot of overwhelm. I
have so much compassion for parents.
I have a lot of compassion for parents right now. It's not like it was before, where it's like maybe, first of all, we didn't have the internet maybe like before the 90s, right? So it was a different way of parenting. You can, you go around the neighborhood on your bicycle, like go next door.
And now we're sharing locations. People know your location. And
what are you doing there? Who are you with? So there's it's a very different way of relating. It's not easy. So definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those who are on, want to begin or are on that journey of reclamation and reclaiming their power and their expression and their ability to choose, like that being their superpower and their way to create a life that they love. And do you have advice for those people?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of how we can heal and correct how we embody power is having healthy relationships that will allow us to really step into that power and put it back on us. What do you want? And not putting it back on them, whatever you want, right? So and it doesn't have to be, it would be great if it was a coach or a therapist that has some training, trauma informed, lots of experience. That's great, but not everybody can afford that.
Yeah,
not everybody can go there. And so maybe a way to do that is healthy friends that really instill that in you. Like, what do you want? Really putting it back on them. So a healthy relationship is really going to make a really big difference. And again, it could be a priest, a pastor, it could be a teacher. I know for me, where I started to really step into my power, all it took was one teacher. One teacher to instill an idea of like, oh, I'm not stupid. Like, okay, what I was told at home is actually not true. And here's the evidence here.
Yeah.
So all it takes is one healthy relationship to really offset maybe some unhealthy relationships where maybe your power wasn't respected.
Or somebody just to be genuinely interested in what you think and how you feel. And like, what do you like? And what I have found is that can really empower people, or it can make people retract who aren't ready to stand in their light and to own their power.
Right.
Do you have guidance or advice for people that are relating with those who tend to when you ask them, well, what do you want? And they continue to repeat the pattern.
Right.
How can you support people in as somebody who loves? Because I have people in my life who are hesitant that will still want to stay in that
that pattern, right?
That pattern. What do you say? How would I support somebody in that?
I really like to challenge people.
I do too.
Yeah, I think it's actually really important because we're interrupting a pattern. So, I mean, in NLP, I think I read on your profile, you and I have a lot more to get to know each other. So I had to look you up to be like, okay, what does she know? So I know how to connect and talk about what tools. In NLP, there's pattern interrupt.
Yep.
And so we need to interrupt that pattern. And in therapy, I'm coming more from the traditional Western medical psychotherapy model. And there's a lot of things in there that I just don't agree with. So I don't necessarily do, but there's a lot that I do too. So I'm integrating NLP and Western therapy, but in Western therapy, it's really just listening, really attuning, really confirming, empathizing, and creating a safe space. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
But change really is going to happen. Like that's the first stage, I feel. But to really get some real change after that is like, let me call you out on, and maybe it's not calling out, but
call you forward.
Let me call you forward. Yeah, exactly. I prefer that. Yes, exactly. Yay. It's saying, hey, I've observed that you are running away whenever this occurs. Like the way I do my work is like people check in and we I really look at their relationships, and through their relationships, we're learning where they're giving their power away or where they're not satisfied with their lives. And so we'll highlight, well, I'm fighting with this person because they're not allowing me to do this or that. And so part of it is recognizing like, okay, well, what's your role? Like we're going to, that person's not in the therapy room right now. So we unfortunately can't include them in this. So let's just look at your role, and which we can always do that individually. And within that, we look at, okay, well, where's your power here? How did you communicate your needs? And eventually within there, we find the pattern. And in that pattern, there's a lot of work that we do. And that pattern is also associated with, where did that pattern begin? Where's the root of that pattern? Oh, well, I had to do that with my mom, or I had to do that with my dad, or maybe my last girlfriend or boyfriend, I had to do that with her or him. Yeah. So at some point, we really kind of trace it back. So trauma really is a repetition of behaviors that occur to try to self-correct out of them, because it's a loop of pain that we're really just trying to have the opportunity to say, there's something that occurred. It really hurt me deeply. How do I not have this happen again? What can I do differently to move out of this? Yeah, I posted something today. Actually, I was talking about really just a call for us all, especially in the world that we live in, to step into our power as leaders, to be the change, to, I think it's easy to look up the ladder and be like, it's their fault and complain about society. But the truth is, we're part of that society. We are. We are the society we're complaining about, and it's up to, no one's coming to save us. Right. We get to be the ones that use our voice. And I was talking about just like, we need to clear the blockages of the collective throat chakra and speak up for ourselves. Yes. And for talking about the pattern of if you were a person that was taught that being quiet meant keeping the peace, right? That might be the pattern. Whose peace is that keeping? Right. And is that working for you? That's one of my favorite statements. How's that working for you? How's that going? It's not going. It's not going well. Yeah. It's not going well. So there's the invitation to do something new and to step out of the comfort zone. Yeah. But that, for me, power has always been connected to personal expression. Yes. Yes. Because I am only as powerful as I am liberated in my ability to be fully expressed. And where I'm not, where I'm in fear or playing small, or I'm not allowed to do that. I can't say that. I can't go there. All the places I tell myself I can't, it's too much. You'll get in trouble. Those are the parts of me that are still operating in fear. And there's the opportunity to liberate some power there.
that is
Absolutely.
not being utilized and resourced because the fear of rejection, abandonment, punishment, all of the things. And now as an autonomous sovereign being, how can I learn to create a safe environment for those parts to
And
exist?
I really like that a lot of those different points you mentioned, the root of all of them were fear, 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 fear.
Fear.
So if we really, really look at how do I step into my power, is it begins with courage. It really begins with courage to really understand what is it that I want and how can I attain it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I believe in myself enough to really motivate and take the action, even if I'm afraid,
Mm-hmm.
even if in psychotherapy, there's an exposure therapy modality where
EMDR?
it's similar to it, but it's more of like slightly exposing somebody to something they're anxious about or have a panic about. But part of the idea, like we would work with this specifically with phobias, where if somebody gets into a car accident or if somebody is afraid immensely about something, it's slowly putting them in that situation. And again, that's where that coach or that friend or therapist can come in and saying, kind of cheerleading or kind of guiding them, like, you're okay, you did it, like you're fine. Like really understanding how to support them in that. But part of it is the courage and the bravery to do what's difficult.
Yeah.
And do it anyways.
I see that. And even just in something like being vulnerable, with my clients, it's like people saying like, I struggle with being vulnerable. And I'm like, you are doing it. Look at you. Like we've just shared this beautiful time together. And all I've heard is vulnerability from you. So like, let that, put some, like give you some evidence that you can. And I think we're oftentimes so like programmed to and committed to our limitations and to our, we can't do it. I can't do it. This is just how it is.
We get stuck there.
Versus where can I see where I am doing it? Where can I show, like, get the evidence that like it's already present within me and I can put the focus on that, that I'm capable, not that I'm incapable.
I like that. What you're talking about now is CBT, right? Like just using the power of your mind to focus on how well am I doing? Like, and one of my favorite practices is gratitude. Just like focusing on like, I'm doing great. Where am I doing great? How am I doing great? Because a lot of the times why we get powerless or get stuck is we're focusing so much on what's going wrong or where we're at, where we don't want to be, or how stuck we are, or how terrible things are. So if we're in that, recycling that in our mind, it's going to really reduce our frequency, meaning that we're going to have less vitality. We're going to have less ability to take action, less ability to motivate into creating the life or creating whatever circumstance we want to create. But I love what you're saying, because that's literally what we have to do is shift and navigate over to how am I doing it? How have I done it? Let's look at your history, because there's probably evidence of like, okay, if you're in a relationship already, or if you have a job already, or if you've acquired something, you've learned something. How did you do it?
Well, it's that self-acknowledgement. Because a lot of times we're looking, sometimes we want that from someone else, but where are we not even acknowledging that within ourselves? And, again, we can be looking outside of ourselves for someone else to give us this thing that we want. And part of it is like stepping into that role of responsibility. Like, I'm here to give myself the things that I need. And that starts with like just self-acknowledgement, self-praise, self-recognition for who I am and what I bring into the world and what I've been through, my resilience. Sometimes it's just like, okay, maybe I don't feel like I have a lot to offer, but I'm fucking resilient.
That's a power.
It's power. I have survived all of my worst days.
Yes.
That is an affirmation you can use right now to remind yourself that you are capable of enduring the hardest things and you're still choosing to be here. Because you do have a choice. You could decide not to do this anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we forget that, or there's power in that choice alone. And sometimes that's like just the little starting point that we like to the building block of coming out of that.
Absolutely.
Place.
And that's why it's so important to have really healthy community to really support you and nourish you and in many different ways that community can, through maybe resources like, oh, I know of this person, or I know, okay, here's what I'm trying to do and I'm having a hard time. Does anybody know anybody that does this or that? Or I'm struggling with this. Just even having that sense of like, would you like to have some tea? Would you like to kind of just talk a little bit about it? Just that sense of we're not alone, that we're connected, that we have like a tribe connected to us. And a lot of what, even like one of the very first visions that I had with psychedelics, going back to the jungle, when I very first did that, was like how far we've removed ourselves from our truest nature. Like how much, like when you're in the villages with like these native individuals who are still living like original humans lived, like really down to the earth, and how where I am, where we are, like how modern and urbanized, technologically advanced, of like how little nature, like there's less nature in our urban cities.
We're not connected to the rhythms and the cycles.
Exactly. We're not connected to the rhythms and the cycles, and we are a part of Earth so much. And so this is coming back more of like how we really, part of our power is also being connected to the earth.
100%.
And that's a whole different discussion.
It is. I was literally hearing a woman today in one of my communities that I'm in. She was teaching on this, the difference in what she thought so much of her life, because she's a creative individual and the creative process. She was like, what I thought was creative was productive. Because of the culture that we live in, we're put on due dates and timelines and creation takes time.
Yeah.
A baby takes 9 months.
Yes.
You don't harvest overnight.
No.
But we work and live within a society and a system that expects us to produce like we are conveyor belts.
Yes.
And we're not. And so to get back to the rhythms and the cycles of life, I think there is a struggle for people because they're like, how do I exist within this time and this place?
Absolutely.
When I literally, my job doesn't allow me to function in that way.
Oh, I have so many of those clients. Actually, a lot of them
I know.
Entrepreneurial. We're like, I have to do these things. I have to be these different roles. So yes, I love that you brought that up because that's very accurate. There's a really great quote by, I think it's Lao Tzu, where it says, you might have heard this, is nature doesn't rush, yet it accomplishes everything.
Yes. 100%. We can't, I've been talking about this. We cannot rush ourselves through a process.
No.
Like of grief. I had a client this week. She is in my Revive Women's membership, which is one of my communities that I run specifically for women. And she'd lost both dogs unexpectedly. And she's going through, the waves of grief. And some days she feels okay. And some days she doesn't. And, and feeling like she should be I should be okay by now. I should be, you know what I mean? And I was, I've been using this analogy so much and it feels appropriate, but it's a little.
Just share it.
Okay. It's like, okay, I think we do this to ourselves all the time is rush ourselves through a transformational process and a natural process. So if you're a woman having a sexual experience with a man or a woman, whoever, and he's going down on you and he keeps looking up at you and he's like, are you done? Are you close? Are you almost there? Like there's a pressure that is put on you to get to a finish line, but your body is going to contract and not feel safe to be able to finish that process that is natural to your body that it needs to go through. And that is the pressure I feel like we all put on ourselves. I'd be like, are you there? Are you done yet? Are you there yet? Have you gotten through this thing yet?
Yes.
Have you created this thing yet? And we put this pressure and then the body contracts and then we're like, oh, I'm holding and I'm just going to try and force it. And I can't get there. And we wonder why we're not achieving the results or the things that we want, because just like whether it's creating a baby, creating life, having or reaching orgasm, like creating some amazing new business model, like getting through a breakup, grieving a relationship, the rushing is the bypassing of a process that needs to be allowed to play out for it to
I agree so much
fully
on that.
complete.
Absolutely. So much. It's this rush culture. It's like, what's next? What's next? And more.
You can't microwave your healing.
No, I like that. I haven't heard that, but
I don't know.
I like that. Yes, it's true. It's a journey. It's meant to be a journey.
Yeah.
It's a story that's unfolding. And it's not a social media quick 90-second story.
Right.
It's like a long form content story. It's ongoing.
Yes. To be continued.
Many chapters, many books. It's meant to be that way too. And where I see that happening is because of our relationship with technology and how it's rewiring our brain to update to the faster operating system, a faster phone, a higher quality camera, just more. So initially technology was meant to aid us and support us. And now it's like, we're surpassing it and like, we're trying to keep up with it. Our brains are trying to keep up. And so when we get off of technology, we're not slowing down still. We're okay. So it's rewiring the brain in this very interesting way. I would love to share some data on that. So I really got to look for it, but I know it's there.
We'll have you back on, do a to be continued second episode. You know what I mean? There's so much we could unpack. I know this serves so many people. Do you have any last final thoughts, words on personal power, or just anything you want to share with people at this time, in the world and in our country, and just some words of wisdom?
Absolutely. So part of personal power is really also knowing where your power is at the moment. And part of it is managing the future of what's possible as well, and trying to stay in the now, in the present. And I'm speaking very specifically because this week, most of my work has been, okay, here's what's happening politically and what's going to happen in the future. So it's kind of bringing people back to, okay, we don't really know. Maybe some people who are psychic, maybe they do, but even then things change. Yeah. So how can we stay in the now? How can we stay in the now and create the change that we want to see in our lives, in our communities? So locally, so bring your power back into your communities, back into your families, but more importantly, back into ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love that reminder to come back into the now. Like really what is here now is the most sacred thing.
Powerful.
Is the most sacred thing. So like, what is the choice I can make now that will serve me to become more powerful in this moment?
In this moment.
And maybe that means I just need to take a walk. Maybe that means I need to take some breaths.
My favorite.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Breathing.
It was so simple. Yeah. And yet sometimes
it could be hard for some
really
people,
challenging.
But yes.
But we don't need to overcomplicate it.
No, we do tend to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, thank you so much for being here, sharing your wisdom, reminding us that power is, it's absolutely possible that there is a path towards reclaiming what has been lost and outsourced and siphoned. Yeah. And it comes down to choice and support and community. And again, we will put all of those resources and communities that I am leading, as well as if Orlando has offerings, coaching, therapy, anything you want to, support around, anything you want people to connect with you on, where you're online, where you're on the internet, and if there's things that you're offering that people can get involved with, let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah, just my website's probably a good base for all things me and my work.
Okay, what is your website?
Communities, transformatherapy.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's in the show notes. Transformatherapy.com is how you can get to know more about Orlando and what he's doing. Yes. And if you're a woman interested in community, you can always check out Revive Las Vegas. Go to revivelasvegas.com. Or if you're looking for coaching or healing sessions, you can always go to the link in my bio on Instagram or TikTok, wherever you follow me. And if this served you, if this is making you feel a little bit more empowered in your day, then I would invite you to share this with a friend that you think might could use a similar message. Or if you really want to go above and beyond and say thank you, you can leave us a rating and review or subscribe to us on YouTube so you don't miss any of our content. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast.